Welcome to Cape Connect. We have shows about people, we have shows about issues, we have shows about organizations, and I think you'll find that our show today is going to be about a situation on Cape Cod which so many people are almost dreading. They don't know what to do about it. We're also going to have a show about a wonderful guest that we have here. And Maggie Zackheim
That's right.
is the guest, and we're going to bat back and forth all the good things. Along the way, we'll be talking about mathematics. Oh, I hate numbers, she said.
No, I have dyscalculia, and I don't agree with zero.
Well, listen,
Yes.
but before we get to
Answer
addiction, before we get to how you make good documentaries, before we get some of the other issues that we want to talk about, I got to tell you that mathematics is kind of interesting. Because, look, there's plus, that's good. There's minus,
What if you're south of the equator?
there's addition, there's subtraction.
Right, but the
There's-
base root is zero, and who? A guy named Bob? I
Yeah.
don't know who he was like
Well,
that.
they got imaginary numbers. They got real numbers. They've got
It does seem like a quack science.
they've got kinds of things that you could take zero and make something out of it.
But it's like the Bible to me. I just want to know the guy's name or the woman's name. And then I can work from there and accept math into my life.
Well, just think. You can take something to a certain power.
I like that.
Yeah, I like
I
those
do
kinds
that.
of things too. Irrational numbers.
Exactly. Anything that goes and dissolves into
Okay.
chaos. Exactly. Like
Okay.
pi.
But as we joke about these kinds of things, I guess there are things on Cape Cod that we don't want to necessarily joke about. And there are a lot of people that are suffering, and there are families that have people that are suffering. There are people that are dying. And you and I met actually at a screening of a documentary
Exactly.
that happened here,
Or what?
Addiction.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, what
About
happened
addiction.
here?
What happened here?
And it talked about addiction on Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And it's hidden
Yeah.
usually, but
Yeah.
all of a sudden
It's
out.
everywhere.
I
Yeah.
mean, you look and here's the governor, and right at the beginning,
Wow.
what's the governor saying?
I intend to tackle this problem.
I intend to tackle this
You might want to go a
problem.
little faster than that. Yeah.
And,
Okay.
you know, and out the Cape Cod Times comes, and here's
Oh,
a meeting.
That's.
Experts stress multi-tier approaches.
Yeah.
Multi-tier approaches. Why
Yeah.
don't you just shoot the drug people, you know, get rid of
Right.
the crack addicts? I mean,
Yeah. It sounds so
isn't it-
easy.
the vicious way people still have of talking about, you know, our friends, our neighbors,
Yeah. Yeah.
our
Absolutely.
family.
But it's what the drug does
Yeah,
to people.
but here another Cape Cod Times, heroin overdose increases in alarming rate.
Yeah.
An overdose?
Yeah.
I mean,
But how many? It's crazy.
what is an overdose? Well, an overdose leads you into bad problems.
Yeah.
Many people have the habit, and yet if they're buying junk drugs,
Perfect way to put it.
they may
Yeah.
suddenly be dead.
Absolutely. Like that.
Unless suddenly somebody else can give them quickly.
Yeah. It's and I've forgotten the name of it, but
Relief?
it's a called it's a nasal. I believe it's a nasal spray to
you can,
bring
you
them
can
back.
do it in a couple of ways, yeah. And increasingly, these things, when you get them, don't leave you in a good state for another dose.
Yeah.
But it's one of the opportunities that you have for
Yeah.
changing the system.
Exactly.
But it's a very complicated
It's
thing.
going to get to the point where there really won't be an option left. Yeah.
Well, you know, there was a book on Democracy Now! Interview called Chasing the Scream, 100 years of the beginning and hopefully the end of the drug war, written by Hari, H-A-R-I.
Yeah.
Just today, I got my Cape Cod Chronicle. You know, Cape Cod Chronicle
Oh, my
takes
goodness.
care of
Yeah.
Chatham and Harwich,
That's
and
surprising.
lo and behold,
happened
you
on
look
the-
and, you know, this year, the real death toll, 3 deaths in Harwich and Chatham this year.
And yes, I know one of them.
Yeah, and this
surfing.
and this guy, he's not that young, he's not that old.
Yeah. What's
And this is going to be a 3-part series.
Yeah.
So we'll
Oh, really?
Yeah, Cape Cod Chronicle is
my
going to
goodness.
feature it. Each of the
Wow.
yeah,
I think
to
I
your
know
good
that one.
health.
Yeah.
Opiate addiction. At last, we're paying attention.
I bought that just because I saw that, and I said, "Good, good."
Yeah,
Yeah.
but what kind of attention do you pay,
Right,
and what
right.
kinds of things can be done about it?
Absolutely.
Where do we tackle this? Because the document that we saw
It was really
looked at all the people that had been clean for a while, and they talked about how they got on drugs, and then gradually how they worked hard, and finally
Yes.
most of them
Yeah.
were, by the time the film was being presented, were still off.
Yeah, off of the
Substance.
substance. But you just pulled up an article right there about that woman who overdosed, a beautiful woman, young, who just overdosed, and she was a recovering addict and was working with other addicts trying to get them into treatments, and she ended up going right back to it. Philip Seymour Hoffman, I mean, actors who you would have no idea about go back after years of being clean. It has the highest relapse rate. It's a constant struggle. You are by taking it, you're sentencing yourself.
Well, certainly, once you're, so to speak, hooked,
Yeah.
you do have, with those chemical hooks, a dependency which leaves you in very bad shape should you try
Oh, yes.
and change your life. But in every case, they talk about how support is necessary.
Yes,
How-
to an extent. Yeah.
And the quote here in the Cape Cod Chronicle talks about the Barnstable County Sheriff James Cummings saying that he's changed. You know, back then he just talked about
Yeah.
junkies. Now he
It's-
is really looking at these people, humans,
Yeah.
who need help. And
It's a shock going to be when I went in there, you know, this is jumping the gun of the story, but when I went to BCCF, I was shocked. I'd never been in a prison in my life. I was there to see somebody, you know, who was addicted. And I looked around and I could have been at the Squire in Chatham. It was the strangest, and everybody was looking around because it's obviously their first time, but this is what's happening. So it's affecting absolutely everybody. It's not an income-based problem. It is, I think, the perfect evil drug, and these families have no preparation for it, and that's what I didn't have. I was not prepared for anything of that happened to me. So,
and how do families help?
Well, by telling them to go. By saying, because it is otherwise, and I wish I'd known this, I thought I am not enabling this ex-boyfriend who I had, who was a fireman, and at that point I thought Percocet was an ibuprofen. It turns out it's an opiate.
Yes.
I grew up in New York, so I don't really have they scared me. Heroin frightened me as a child. They just looked kind of dead, to be honest. So it was strange that I came out to my childhood favorite summer place, only to see, you know, in front of me what I would walk over in the mornings on 6th Street, and it's somehow accepted. It's a strange, and it's a total loss of self. And 1 year of my life was spent with somebody who has no recollection of who I am, essentially.
My goodness, that's quite a story.
It's amazing, and how you can fool yourself, because if you're empathetic or have any sense of compassion, it can be that's what they're looking for. When you're addicted at that point, you could have been summa cum laude. It doesn't matter. You're going to hone in on the vulnerable, who are the kind people, or people who will give you a little bit of wiggle room. And it all made sense once I saw him getting taken out in handcuffs. How close I came to possibly passing away myself, just by being in this situation that I had no idea. Because he was also using, which is very common, cocaine. And the more I sort of researched it by really badgering the poor police officers, because I wanted to know what it looked like. I was so scared of it.
Well, you can't tell it just by its appearance.
I thought it was guarana.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, and then it turns out that he had been taking cocaine as well. And that's very typical, or it's becoming more, and it's called speedballing. And it's something that I had never seen somebody doing. It's a very bizarre experience once I realized. But he would, it's the heroin is to bring them down, and but the mixture together at one point becomes, I would say, so cinematically maniacal that it scared me. So I was always thinking that he had a mental issue, that he needed my support. And I spent, 6 months trying to get him into treatment. And he kept me looking while he was taking, here and there. And I found out what he took once he got arrested. It was terrible.
Well, there are various places that you do learn about it in the world. And there's even a TV show, Nurse Jackie.
Oh,
and
yes.
still into its last and final 6th season. And Nurse Jackie is, in the latest episode, clean again.
Isn't she a pill? Yeah.
But I think that it is a danger that many medical people face.
Yeah.
And I for quite a while, was being treated by a doctor, and she was away from her practice for a while, recovering. And,
spending more time with the family.
Recovering from addiction. And then was back at a practice again, and again, and I think when people feel they've lost their respect, it's harder to deal with the addiction.
Absolutely, and a lot of times though, that what I didn't realize, it's like having it's another heartbeat. It's almost like another entity goes into you, and it sort of cases itself around and suffocates. Everything that made me, love that person is now gone. It's grieving. So you're in all of these different strange, very, very sad, dark places with them. So you are part of the addiction without the respite of sleep that the opiates provide, because you're not doing it.
Yes.
And so there were situations that I'm shocked.
Yeah.
And it was all under me going, I just have to be strong.
Well,
and really I was being weakened.
Yeah. And so the multi-tiered approach, how many ways you come at it.
Yeah.
About 3 years ago, I was in a car accident, and the car was totaled. I was almost totaled. Broken ribs, broken pelvis,
Sounds like
in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I don't know what opiate they gave me. It's listed, and when I left and went into the rehab to get my strength back, I was still on it, and people said, "You're very friendly right now," and I said, "Yeah, well, I'm a friendly guy." Well, you're a little more friendly than usual. Okay, but I was horribly constipated.
This is something that it's good to talk about, the ugly side of it.
And so as quick as I could,
it's a relationship record.
And sooner than they were recommending, I got back onto Tylenol.
The hard stuff?
No, it's just over-the-counter Tylenol.
Yeah.
And so that was a way to handle temporarily the residual pain of the.
Now,
terrible if you break your rib.
I did break my rib, and I was told to lie there.
Well,
for 6 months.
it's a very unpleasant.
Yeah, because there's nothing you can do. And for people with chronic pain or in a hospice, it's a real disservice to the people who need the medication. It's a disservice to dropping my iPhone on cue.
Oh.
Hold on.
Should we leave it on the floor? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's happy now.
It's resting.
I shouldn't have greased it up.
I usually, when I'm finished with my iMac computer, put it to sleep. So maybe
I do that
maybe
too.
your iPhone will go
and
to
I cry
sleep
every
too.
time, and it comes back to life.
Oh, that's
like
all you
putting a
need.
dog dinner is a bad idea. I know, it's only when I don't think it's going to break that it breaks. I'm a pro.
The different places that drug addiction seems to occur is just, I gotta say, all over, because you're talking about New York City.
Yeah.
and we can talk about
Yeah.
smaller towns.
And it's like, of
But-
course.
But
yeah.
now, now we're in town. I've been very interested in doing a documentary on North Dakota, where I led a work camp on an Indian reservation
All right, yeah.
with the American Friends Service Committee quite a few years ago. And so we built an Earth Lodge with tribal members. But today, that reservation is in the center
Yeah.
of an oil play, the
Yeah.
Bakken oil play. They have 30% of North Dakota's oil, and North Dakota is the second leading state
Yeah.
in producing oil through fracking.
Huh.
And so all kinds of people have come in, and the growth has gone stupendously.
Yeah.
And so you can talk about a big city,
Yeah.
you can talk about a tourist area, residential area, business area on Cape Cod, but now in
It's.
the Indian reservation,
I've lived in New Mexico. They're
it-
vast.
it is a terrible, terrible
Yeah, and
plague.
it's the only, and it's, I mean, when I was growing up, I lived in, grew up half in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and the Indian, you had the dry reservations, and that stretch between Santa Fe and Espanola, which is the lowrider capital, and the reservations there was the most dangerous stretch of highway because the dry reservations, people would go out and buy and drink on the way home. And just the most insane accidents would happen. So the more you keep from people and you make it harder to get, the more they're going to want it. And that actually is something that there needs to be massive change. Almost how Switzerland, it regulated heroin, in a sense, the Holland, and it made it less. My dad did have this term for advertising, sexy. It makes it less sexy if your moms are going, go on, that's okay. More chicken, you're not. And that's he would talk about the thrill, and I thought this is the most boring thrill I've ever, watching you, go like this for I don't know, and yeah, so I
Well,
had a point,
let's talk.
and that's my point, Bob.
Well, let's talk again a little bit about making documentaries about this, because we saw a
Yes.
very fine documentary,
Yeah.
and later on I think there'll be shows on
The follow-up.
Channel 99 about that.
That's a great
But,
idea.
yes, and so the elements of a good documentary about addiction. In that case, they had various people that had been on drugs and talked about how they got clean, as I said before.
Yeah.
But they also had the county sheriff.
Yeah.
Barnstable County Sheriff was on, the chief of police from Falmouth was on.
Yeah.
They had news reporters on. They had people that work in the various institutions, Gosness and others that attempt to take people and help them.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting thing, and what it's the demographic though is skewed so much younger. Although now it is seeping into, it's seeping into the.
Well, in the film, they certainly did have people
Yeah.
in their 20s, and then finally someone who was 30. But this is.
They don't usually live. That's the thing. But people are starting later now because they're prescribed for pain, the opiates, the oxycodone, or and
Six people had died of overdose in
Yep.
Yarmouth this year.
Yep, because they were lacing. And I know this is stuff I really wish I didn't know, but there's a reason for stuff, who knows. But fentanyl was actually mixed in with the heroin, and that's what killed Philip Seymour Hoffman, the actor, this year, and his addiction. And that was at the same time that the person I was trying to help was going off on, and I just, what it does to the person who loves them is, it's indescribable. It's everything. It's like it's like an opera. It's betrayal. It's he forged checks on my birthday.
So did you use a 12 steps
Oh no,
method along the way?
He did not. Everything that I was told, he never did one thing that I broke up with him. I said, 6 weeks, and if you're not clean, and he comes back saying he's clean, and I find drugs again, and I call the police, because I don't let that in my house. And but it's a systematic breakdown, and they isolate, and it's an isolation because they have to get you in a position, you know, everything's very tactical. And I noticed this about him. He changed the more into it he became.
And so
paranoid.
so the counseling is not only for the person who
Yeah.
is on the drug, the counseling is for the people that are close to them, the family,
We don't get
parents, partners, but you need it.
He never. Well, yeah, exactly. I was never, and I've yet to. You know, I did not know what would come of this. I was blindsided to the point of, and I talk a lot. I could not speak for about 2 weeks because
Really?
he had. You know, it's obviously I can't discuss it in great detail, but he and his family had actually tried to extort money from me. And this is somebody who was apologizing in jail. He's changed. I mean, it was like, you know, come on. We all saw Shawshank Redemption. Everybody does this in jail. I'm going to be clean. I'm never going to, you know. And I said, and he asked me in the letters if he could move in with me back into the same place that he had just been arrested. So and I said, of course, you can come here and get your stuff on our way to Gosnold and on our way to a treatment center. And the idea that his own family, because of whatever dynamic they had, fought me, even though he was this close to getting wonderful treatment, it is still shocking. And lo and behold, and I knew it almost to the day, and I said he relapsed. And I finally met with the probation officer, and a wonderful man and really helpful. I never knew I had that right. Had I known that, I would have been in a better position, I think, by now. But this is a year and a half later that I'm discovering this, but he told me that he had been taken in for heroin, that it had shown in his, shown up in his bloodstream or whatever in the sample. And again, so it's been twice. And all of what he does is, besides stealing money from me, which is, but he has never paid me back and wrecked my car, is that he has to do classes, corrective classes. This is just, it's just dressing, you know, because it is a revolving door system. I don't know to what purpose.
You don't know how effective it is? Is that the point?
It's completely and utterly ineffective, and you can etch this in the, you know, Formica, but honestly, it is so ineffective. It's simply a way to buy time and catch him again.
Certainly, I understand. In this case, as you described it, it was ineffective. And I don't know what the full statistics are on all the attempts to do it that way, whether occasionally it helps.
Well, it doesn't work.
Must help some.
Well, you know, what's interesting.
What helps?
What helps is just the person. I mean, this is the one thing. I almost lost a very close friend of mine. I would call him a brother. And actually, he advised me through this because he is in recovery, but very, and he got his PhD, and he's now a counselor and trying to help teens who are at risk and stuff. So he's trying to, but he knows. And he warned me. He said, when he gets caught, and I was like, oh, this will never happen. This is at sort of the beginning of the relationship, but I was concerned, and I thought it was worth talking to him. He said, he's going to walk away, and you'll never see him again until he wants something. So you have the loss of, and the shock, and then you have the fear about them coming back. And the Cape is small, you know, and there really is nowhere to, they can do extra police patrols or EPPs, which I have requested a few times, but besides, I mean, his sentence for, you know, pretty heinous things was to go to class.
Yeah. Well, do you have any idea about how things work in other countries? I mean, the USA has got a few states which is changing their attitude toward marijuana. Marijuana is that's a whole other program.
And it's also not,
with respect to what Massachusetts is doing, trying not to do. And then Washington State and Colorado and soon California.
Yeah, it's not a gateway drug.
Well,
I mean, maybe, but that's
no. Granted that, and yet there are different opinions and different statistics. But what about other countries? As you go about and look at Portugal, as you look at Holland, as you look, you know, the Dutch are.
It's so clinical.
Have a different attitude. I understand down in Uruguay. There are
Uruguay. Sorry,
Well, look,
I was
so-
told to pronounce it that
so-
way. Urwan. Yes.
Newfoundland for a while had a different way to handle people that.
Is this a Newfie joke? This is going to be a Newfie joke.
This won't have a punchline at the end if that's what you're waiting
I went to
for.
camp in Canada, and for some reason they pick on Newfoundland. So they have Newfie jokes.
Yeah,
I don't think it's
But,
correct.
yeah. But
Sorry.
okay, well, I mean, supposing you were
Yeah.
supposing you were going to go on a trip to the moon or a
Yes.
trip to Mars. I mean,
How did you know?
what are the what are the astronauts on their way? Someone happened to take a little.
Who's driving?
Yeah, who's in charge?
Yeah, don't let my ex-boyfriend drive.
Yeah.
You'll end up on a different planet. That's never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a dangerous for everybody.
okay. Well, we're into a little bit of humorous.
We're getting
interaction
jolly.
here. But now looking,
Yeah.
if you're going to do a documentary, can you do?
Am I?
can
Yes.
You might. You're a director. Yeah. You
Yes.
certainly have the past experiences and credentials, and so were you to do one, could you do a humorous one?
Well, this is very interesting that you bring that up
Yeah,
because you
how,
brought
how
up.
would you do it? Tell me
Well,
about
this
it.
is the thing is that we're talking about the age group, and I worked at MTV, and I've always been interested in pop culture, and I would always. There are two things that would always kind of I go that doesn't. In the 60s with the protests, and then again with the protests with Bush, there's always the one guy who shows up dressed as a clown, you know, and you're thinking you're not making. You make an impact through the visual, you know, and you have to relate and connect. That's why that first Occupy Wall Street was so effective because the pilots showed up.
Yeah.
They were workers, you know,
Yeah.
and then it turned into Tent City and, you know, whatever, and they were all going for Starbucks.
Yeah.
So, but
and then people were sort of happy that the newscasters couldn't understand what the point of it all was.
they lost the completely lost the plot. I was like, are you guys still occupied? I mean, at that point, it was just, it's embarrassing. But it's like my rubber nose theory. It's like you gotta get rid of the things that are gonna, and focus on what kids and young people respond to. And it's music, and it's, I mean, why not bring, you know, everybody's favorite hip hop artist out here for a fundraiser. I mean, there are people you'd be shocked, celebrities who do things that you never ever hear about. And this has a large celebrity community and something that can make it, like I said, sexy, because it's not sexy when you are around heroin. It is like being around a dying relative.
Well, I
It's the
think
least
the
attractive
program that you will maybe put together yourself will be one that I will come.
Well,
and
you're going to
listen
have to
and-
be the, yes, absolutely. Only if you, a little theme song whenever you walk
So
in.
I think we're about winding up our show at this point, and yeah, you know.
I have not yet begun.
I used to do hour shows, but now we're doing
Oh
half-hour
gosh.
shows.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm new, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Well, yeah.
And so here we are. We're going to be.
Al and Bert.
We're going
yeah.
to be having a future.
Does your wife know? I'm.
Oh, I told my wife we were going to have a ditzy kind of
Oh,
a show
excellent.
today.
Oh, perfect. I saw her squealing out of here.
And she said, "Enjoy yourself." And so,
Yeah.
we trust the viewers are also. And,
Absolutely.
Cape Connect will be back with other shows on addiction. We will try and have people from a
Let
few
people
towns.
talk. Yeah.
People
yeah.
talking about what's going on with youth. People are talking about what's going on
Yeah.
offshore.
Yeah. Oh, it's
Yeah.
it's an interesting
Okay.
thing. We can
Well, folks, Cape Connect is a program which will be coming again about people, about issues, about organizations and possibilities. Thanks for watching, and see you again sometime. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Toodle pips.